Welcome to this screencast about Back to Basics, MLA citations plus revising and editing. This is Mrs. Abdul, and I'm going to walk you through a presentation that you can stop and use at any point in time and continue on when you're ready. So the first thing we're going to talk about is citing sources and the proper way to cite sources in any research paper. I'm going to start with the Works Cited page. This is the last page of your research paper. It is all by itself, and it includes an alphabetical listing of all of the sources that you used. Notice that the words Works Cited page are at the top in the center, and at the bottom is my last name and the page number. Inside of the Works Cited page are all of the sources. They're listed in alphabetical order by either the last name of the author or the first word in the title. If you do not have an author's last name, then you use the title. Notice that 2 of my citations here have a last name and 2 have a title. If you don't have a title or an author, then it's likely not a source that you can use. Notice also that for 3 of the 4 of my citations, anything that's past 1 line of text is indented. So I don't number and I don't bullet, but one of the things that makes it aesthetically pleasing is to indent anything past the first line, which means you have to break the line and then tab, and then you have your indentation. This is what a complete Works Cited page looks like. And then how do I make that connection to the in-text citations, also known as parenthetical citations? Think of it as like a lock and a key. So if I'm writing my research paper and I'm including information that I found through research from a source, I'm going to write that sentence, and at the end, in parentheses, I'm going to put the author's last name or the title of the article. And notice that whatever is in the parentheses is the first thing that I will see in my Works Cited page. For instance, this was a research paper, and I included an informational piece about Cambodian dance. And because I found this through research, I put Stone, which is the author's last name, in the parentheses before the period. And then if I looked to my Works Cited page, I would see the full citation at the bottom. Both of these things must exist. And my suggestion is to do them as you're writing the paper. There's nothing worse than having to go back and add the citations later. Part of this is that you need to have an organized way to conduct your research, and you're going to see an entire video about that specifically. But then also that you just need to be mindful as you're writing the paper to do everything as it's being written, not to have to plug in things later. Because accidental plagiarism through laziness, in which you're just going to try to pick which one and think of, where it came from and plug it in, that is still considered plagiarism. So you need to watch that. There was an update to MLA several years ago, and so this gives you another way to look at it. You'll notice that each of the gray boxes is kind of the description, and it goes line by line by line. If you have a last name and a first name of an author, that's going to go first. Then you're going to end that with a period, and then it's the title of the article, and then you're going to end that with a period. And then you have the article if it came from a larger source, which they call a container, and so on and so forth. Some of these boxes you won't have to fill out, and others you will, including if you're using a website. The URL is back in fashion to add to your URL, to add to your citation. Make sure that the final list is alphabetized, and that's something that if you use a citation generator that I'll talk about in a few minutes may do for you. So here's some of the things that you can use. And again, it's another slide saying the same thing. This is a checklist that you can use and pause to look through to make sure that you have. And then here's how to polish the checklist. So the nuts and bolts are the first slide, and this is the last few things to make sure that you have in looking at your Works Cited page. And I mentioned already the citation generators. These are tools for online use that can create your Works Cited page. But one of the things I still caution you is that sometimes what you put in is what you get out still. So if you have a misspelling, if you don't capitalize something, it will not correct it for you. So you do still need to be mindful of what you're putting into the citation generator when it asks you for information. You can go to the research tab on the library website at albanyfalconlibrary.weebly.com, and you'll see a list of any of the citation tools generators that you can use. But you're not done. Now you've got some editing, and you'll see just a few things that you can work on in terms of editing for your actual paper and your citations here. And the other thing is transition phrases. The less wordy you can be, the better. And so here are some examples of transition phrases that you can go back and revise in your paper. Use a varied amount of transition phrases to better get your point across. And then next we have a couple places to talk about revising. Revising for citations specifically. Both of these sentences say the same thing, but in one I use the citation, the parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence to refer to the article. And in the second sentence, I incorporate the citation into the body of the sentence. So I'm referencing the Bureau of Labor Statistics article on pay in the second one, but in the top one, I'm actually including the title of the article that you would find in the works cited page at the bottom of my research paper. Both do the same thing. So again, you can vary your research paper by using different variations of the same thing. Some of the other pieces, again, you can pause this and review this at any time. Some of the other pieces about topic sentences and making sure that you've summarized in your conclusion, adding or removing details if they're not supporting evidence for your paper itself. It stinks, frankly, to have to take things out that you've written in, but if it disrupts the flow of the paper and it doesn't add to your information of the paper, it doesn't need to be there. And one of the suggestions that people have given is to reread your paper backwards, sentence by sentence, and you might find some of those things that you don't see when you're reading it top to bottom, left to right. Other things to consider during revising. Did you address all of the assignment? So for this, any paper that you're doing, you want to look at the assignment again. Have you answered all of those questions? Do you have a thesis statement? Does the content match the audience? Does it sound like you? Teachers know what you sound like when you speak and when you write. So one of the things that you definitely want to pay attention to is making sure that it sounds like you. And the suggestion here is to have somebody else read your paper for you. So manage your time and ask for help. The librarian is here if you have any questions. Again, if you get back to the Albany Falcon Library.weebly.com website, there's a button that says Ask a Librarian, and we can set up a Google Meet or we can text. The texting number for the library is 518-992-3112, or you can direct message on any one of our social media apps. One of the things that you want to make sure that you have enough time for is doing all of the research, putting it together, revising it, and then having somebody look at it before the deadline. If you're running out of time, you haven't given yourself enough time. And if you're having issues at the beginning, stop and ask for help before it gets worse. So here again, if you want to stop and you want to look at some of the pieces of checklists that you can use, pause this video and look at it. Have you addressed your works cited page? Have you cited all quotations? Have you read your paper aloud? These are just some really great tips that you can use for this assignment and any assignment that you do. So this is Mrs. Abdul. I'm signing off for this video about revising and editing as well as MLA citations. Get in touch with the library if you have any other questions.